A huge reaction to this ode to St. Pat's from Brian Kerr yesterday. Have a look.
Liverpool can finish off the season, I said, with the biggest trophy of all in football by beating Spurs, but they may not do it.
You would hope so, Ryan. But I know you would. But
well, look, I look at make no apologies for saying my team is St. Patrick's Athletic.
Absolutely.
I have never cried about Spurs losing a match. I have often cried about Pats losing, right? Lots of cup finals and sad days. But I've always had a bit of a feeling for Spurs. Spurs is a team, one of my teams. I've always had a team in every division. From when I was a kid, I had a team like Preston was my team. Doncaster was my team. They were playing today against Charlton. Scunthorpe I had, and I had Dunfermline, I had Ayr. I had a team in every division I used to, and I still maintain that. I look at every result. I look at every result in every league. Spurs happen to me, but I don't get upset, and I don't refer to them. I don't say we should do this or we should, like many supporters of English teams do. I'm not away. I'm not from North London. I'm from Drimnagh, and Pats was my nearest League of Ireland team, and it's still my team. So those of you that watch me on Twitter reacting to Spurs winning during the week, settle down. It was just a match. I was delighted about the outcome, delighted in the change of Spurs' fortunes on the night. It looked like it was gone, but you know, if it was Pats in the league match, which it will be against your team, Boas, next Friday.
I hope you'll be crying.
It might be with joy, it might be with pleasure, but it might be just to seeing a great League of Ireland game between two respectful Dublin rivals, let's say.
Indeed.
Yeah, Nathan?
Yes. I'm still here. What's your point?
Yeah, just people there's been a backlash against the footage of various analysts, generally the studio analysts, celebrating goals. What's your take? You've got a take.
Yeah, I think it maybe at times puts them in a unfair position in that suddenly Brian Kerr is a Tottenham fan. Can he correctly analyse them? Is he going to be totally biased? Is he going to be sitting in the Virgin studio for the Champions League final and talking about Spurs in a way that's not actually correct because somehow he's emotionally tied to them? That is not going to happen. I don't mind it in that I think it shows that they still care about the game, that they get as excited as everybody else about the game. There's nobody who wasn't watching on Tuesday night Liverpool and Tottenham on Wednesday night that was sitting in their seat. Everybody was off it. Everybody was up near the TV. Everybody's almost rolling around the place because of the drama of what's unfolding. And for fellas to be in their 50s, 60s and still to get as excited and as involved, I don't think there's anything particularly wrong with that. At times, if it turns into, oh, look at the Manchester United supporter or the Liverpool supporter celebrating again, or if it was celebrating the misfortune of another team. So if Tottenham end up getting beaten or Liverpool get beaten and you have all the former Manchester United players celebrating it, doesn't really reflect well. But like Neville and Carragher, I think now handle it in a decent way. It's probably works because the two of them haven't been in a position of strength at the same time. So it's hard for Gary Neville to be hugely positive about Manchester United. But I guess during that run, he was.
Yeah,
for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Remember that? What was the famous line about Garth Crooks and Sven-Goran Eriksson the first time that the BBC have ever shown two men having sex? It was the whole world got to see two men having sex when Gary Neville interviewed Ole Gunnar Solskjaer.
Just let that hang there for a little while. I guess it's different in Ireland as well. Like Neville and Carragher are such legends of their club, and I wouldn't be surprised if Sky actively encouraged it because Liverpool and Manchester United are the two best supported clubs. Yeah. So if you're getting the interaction, if Gary Neville says this, all the Liverpool supporters respond. If Jimmy Carragher says this, all the United supporters have a go at him. And I can't imagine editors are too upset. And I can't imagine anybody out in Virgin is too upset that this clip of Brian Kerr was watched God knows how many hundreds of thousands of times.
Yeah, it came up in the
show business, baby.
It came up in the pay-per-view yesterday, though, and Ronald Nugent had an interesting take on. We'll play that a little bit later on. There's one last thing I wanted.
Yeah, I saw that, and the one thing on that, I guess, is that and I presume they all have to know now, if the pundits don't know they're being recorded, if they think we can sit in studio and be natural and suddenly, like as you say, it happens so often now, it's probably going to go wrong at some stage, that someone will celebrate a goal or do something or something will happen that they don't want broadcast, and by the time you come off air, it's there.
I think
I haven't spoken to Brian, But there was obviously a lot of beeps and a lot of cursing while that game was going on. Like at times, like that's private stuff that people generally don't want made public.
And as well, I think with Brian is that like it's one thing watching Rio Ferdinand and whoever it is in BT Sports screaming their heads off and but I think it's just with Brian Kerr. What made the Brian Kerr thing so good was that there was so many Dublinisms in there, you little Dixie and all that. And I think Irish people can identify with what Brian was saying during that game. And look, we all get into this because we have a passion for football or whatever sport it is. That's what you're in it for, and that's how you start off in the business, whether it's becoming an athlete or a journalist or whatever the case may be. And you want people analysing the game who have a passion for the game. You don't want people who are trying to, dissect it coldly. There is a time for that. But when there are great moments like that, as we had during this week, you want people, expressing their passion for the game. That's what you want to see. Now, as I said, maybe the BT thing is getting a little bit too much now because we're just seeing the same thing over and over again. The Brian Kerr thing was unique because it was Brian Kerr.
I think it's also because the games were good this week. If the games had been crappy 0-0 draws and there'd been a scratchy penalty and a VAR decision, none of this would have happened. But the bit where everything's being recorded, like, we all sit in the studio a lot with the mics down and say some stuff that we shouldn't say. Like, they're long out shifts. The lads are out 3.5, 4 hours before kickoff. They're in makeup, they're relaxed, they're not relaxed, they're on, they're off. It's a recipe for disaster is basically what I'm saying in a shorthand way. Nathan, every year the most important award in football is the one that you hand out, that you personally invented. It is it wouldn't quite be a golden boot, it'd be a green boot.
We should get a green boot. Next year we need to get this sponsored.
An emerald boot I've just had in my ear from Joseph.
Could we call them the Cool King?
No.
Just said it's something catchy. It could.
Is that cool with a K?
Could work. No, whatever way you want, Steve.
We were doing so well. The green boot. Go on.
Well,
explain what it is.
Which Irish player scores the most goals in a Premier League season? Simple as that, Ger.
You've been keeping this record now. Easy. You've been keeping this record for at least 3 seasons.
I've been bored on this train journey after every final day of the season and had a quick look through this. Last season was the worst season in the goal scoring sense for Irish football ever. 11 goals the season before last. 2 goals was top scorer. This season, Jerry, we had a massive improvement for Irish football. 23 goals for Irish players in the Premier League this season.
Floodgates have opened.
Shane Duffy and Shane Long scored 5 each.
That's great.
So, like the Golden Boot, it's basically being shared.
Ireland is now
exactly.
Ireland is now the equivalent of Sadio Mane or Sergio Aguero, +1.
No, we got more goals. There's a bit of research I'll have to do. When was the last time Irish players scored more goals than the top scorer in the Premier League?
Yeah.
So we scored 23. They only scored 22. So there was actually a good spread of Duffy and Long got 5. Matt Doherty got 4. Kieran Clark got a couple. Seamus Coleman got a couple. Michael Obafemi scored a goal somewhere along the way. But it's a far cry. I think the first season in the Premier League, there were 72 goals scored by Irish players. We're unfortunately never going to get back to that level again.
Troy Parrott. Troy Parrott might score 30 goals a season.
Troy Parrott's injury just came at the worst time because he might have got a game yesterday.
Yeah.
There's a good chance he would have got a game.
Absolutely.
And who knows? Anyway, there was no chance he was going to play. Probably isn't even registered, but yeah. All right, Nathan, you spoke with Matt Doherty. We're going to play that interview now. He stopped yesterday. He was in good form for a chat.
Yeah, he did. And he's always in pretty good form for a chat. He's very likeable, Matt Doherty. He's a good confidence, I find. He sort of looks at where he is and goes, you know what? Because I think of the manager he plays with has instilled this in him. I belong here. I belong at this level. Because he has so many talented players alongside him for the club team, I think he sort of trusts where he is and is very comfortable in this Premier League setting. One of these players that if he went to a different team, it mightn't be as straightforward, and probably is the case with Ireland, that it's not going to be as straightforward, because unfortunately at Ireland he doesn't have João Moutinho and Ruben Neves just inside him. But yeah, obviously I think Matt Doherty was the standout player from an Irish point of view this season.
Seamus Coleman didn't play yesterday. Was he injured? Does anybody know?
No, not off the top of my head now, to be honest.
They were away from home, weren't they? So I'd
Yeah.
imagine that they probably just rested him at the end of the season. They had their send-off last week.
Yeah, he went 3 at the back, so he played wing backs. He had Yuri Mina back in the team alongside Zuma and Michael Keane. So unless it was something to do with that, I suppose, look, it's the last game of the season. They didn't need the result. Maybe he's looking ahead to next season. Here's a new formation I can try out. You know, maybe it could be an experimental.
Yeah.
Give Seamus a well-deserved day off.
All right. Speaking of well-deserved days off, Nathan, you're on your way home. Thanks very much for joining us this morning, and congratulations on putting down a great Premier League season. And congratulations to you, Steve-O, for making your debut this season.
Thanks, Chair.
Game of the year for you. What was
Cheers,
yours?
lads.
Game of the year that I did.
Yeah.
Well, I suppose probably watching Huddersfield against Man U last week. It was just, when you see a team that's already relegated putting in a performance like that against Manchester United was just incredible.
Turns out Cardiff said, "Hold my beer." And what about you, Nathan?
Same as last season, Liverpool, Manchester City, except this year it was the flip. It was at the Etihad. The 2-1 was the highest quality game I've ever seen in the Premier League. The speed of it, the ability of the players to somehow control a ball when everything's going at 110 miles an hour. And in fact, it was the sort of game that made you rethink what you thought about English football, as to say that it is the best league in the world right now. They are the best 2 teams in Europe right now. And even coming away from it going, you know what? Rather than getting on these Irish players all the time while we don't have enough of them in the Premier League, saying, bloody hell, the guys that are there who are playing week in, week out, the 15 or so of them that get a game, the level they have to get to be able to play in that league, what Coleman and Doherty and Duffy are doing, we never fully appreciate it. We never say that these guys are our finest athletes that are coming out of this country. But you look at the talent that's available in the Premier League, for them to be there, and just even watching a game like City and Liverpool, that they get to play on that pitch against those players and can hold their own. Matt Doherty yesterday, John Walters touched on it afterwards, was probably the best player on the pitch for a large chunk of that game against this Liverpool team. He was that good. So Liverpool City, and hopefully once again Liverpool City gets to that standard next season.
Sorry, recency bias. Spurs Arsenal, my first game actually. That was how could I forget it? 4-2.
Come on.
As I was actually going over in the plane that day, and I was kind of going, "Oh, first game to commentate on. What am I going to do when it goes quiet? What am I going to try and get Gary Breen to talk?" Well, I didn't have to worry because there was goals every couple of minutes. 4-2 was incredible. Yeah.
Nice one. All right, lads. Good stuff.